Good morning. Oh, it's Monday. Crack a jack. Let's swing the arms. Ah, have a nice out breath as you release the arms out of the sockets. It's not throwing them, it's dropping them. It's as the hands come to the bottom of the arc, seeing how much you've been able to release the upper arm muscles. Of course, you let your bum come out or your tail, however you think of it. And just let it happen, whatever happens. So if you don't go very far down or very far up, if the shoulders hurt and don't want to swing above or don't want to swing hardly at all, then, let them do their thing. Okay, standing. And now we're going to the cornice. Not about, sort of assuming, imagine you're in the middle of a room, in a Victorian room, with beautiful cornices. And as we breathe out, with one hand, reach for the diagonal and come out of it. Have a swing, and then you're going to reach for the other diagonal. So I'm swinging to let the arms come to the top of the arm, dropping the other arm, breathing down through the spine, down through the outside leg, and dropping that outside foot, but also that hip. That helps you open. And just one more of each of those before we start. So also notice as you swing what's happening to the tension in the top of the feet. That might sound a bit esoteric, but it isn't really. Just come to notice the feeling in the top of the feet as you release the arms, as you breathe out, as you drop the arms. And then when you're ready, when you feel like you've come to a position where you can rest with your arms in the air, take a moment to breathe down through the spine to visualize the energy of the breath, carrying tension out of you, but also that energy is going to go down through the outside edge, the heel, the outside edge of the foot, and that hip that you're going away from, pinning it. And it's from the pin that we soften. And, you have to decide how long you're going to hold that. You're using this as a structure system in order to help us, first of all, come into what we're doing completely, have a huge amount of feeling awareness, to start moving with the breath, to start emptying the enormous amount of tension in the shoulders and the arms, and then ultimately to open the side of the body. So I use the breath, the exhalation, pretty much for everything. If anyone asks me in a class, are you using the inhalation or the exhalation? It's nearly always the exhalation for pretty much everything that I do. I find the exhalation has the ability, as I was talking about it there, I just realized how odd it was, that the exhalation has the ability to kind of pin the foot or whichever I'm thinking about, in this case, the hip, sending it down. I'm sending the energy down into the hip and down into the foot, pinning that. And it's the exhalation that's doing that. But it's the softness that happens towards the end of the exhalation that takes advantage of it. So it is, in a way, it's quite complex. Just one more the other side, or whichever side you feel like, just to try and feel how one exhalation is doing both of those things. In fact, a number of things, but to try and keep it simple. Breathing, sending the exhalation with intention down under the hip and the foot, pinning that hip, pinning that foot, giving you something that you can open easily away from, and then using the end of the exhalation, the pause at the end of the exhalation, to soften in as well. So it's one exhalation, yet it's doing both of those things, I think, quite clearly and interestingly. And with that in mind, let's come into a Monday morning salute. We haven't actually just done a salute for a little while. And I just feel like starting the week with one. So open the feet, come towards the front of the mat. If you're going to feel you're going to benefit from having some kind of block, then have some kind of block or two handy. If you start there's a number of traditional ways to start a salute, but I was, Iyengar. As you put your palms and you touch your palms, there's an enormous amount of, if you just slightly move your palms up and down, you'll feel heat, a lot of inflammation, a lot of nerve endings in the fingers, in the ball, we've got a lot of feeling in the palms of our hands. So can you now imagine that someone is pushing gently the elbows? And this is another Iyengar visualization from the days where the world was in black and white, when the visualization that I was given originally is that someone is pushing your elbows together. This may have been the first invisible helper, gently pushing the elbows together so that the hands get pushed, and you can feel it particularly in the heel of the hand, but you can also feel up each finger as it touches each other finger, and rest the top of the shoulders. So where that corner where the shoulder meets the neck, empty face, take stock of the whole body. Where's the weight? Is there tension in the tummy? Could you, as you breathe out, this time we're going to drop the tension down through the muscle, the energy and the tension down through the center of the system, through the center of the spine, down through the legs, out through the feet, into the floor, down, 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 down. And as the energy is going down, also the slight pressure is coming on the elbows, pushing the hands together. And then if you release, having had them push, as you exhale, release. Now, the idea in the Iyengar days anyway, is that the arms float all the way up. From that pressure towards each other, they burst out and come above your head without tension in the shoulders. But as we've done the swing already, maybe that's not even necessary. And then in the traditional, you come forward hinging. So the hands are above the head, not high, with soft shoulders, but nevertheless they're there, and you hinge. And as you hinge, the beauty of the hinging into the forward bend is it gives maximal opportunity to open each side of the sacrum. The hip bones move away from the spine. It's very simple. You can actually use your hands to help, along the pelvic rim, really, that kind of area, just below. Feel that the hip bones move away from each other, and that'll slightly bring you towards the outside edge of the feet. Now see if you can relax the head. Keep the hands on your back. Rest them now and try and have empty shoulders. And see, just take a snapshot of yourself. Have you released the head? Have you released the forehead? What about the jaws? If you release the jaws, does that help you release the neck and the shoulders? If you release the jaws and the neck and the shoulders, can you also soften between the shoulder blades? And then if you look up from the floor's point of view at your feet, if you've got more weight on your heels than your toes, which I definitely have, I'm now going to try not to fall on my face as I slowly slide the weight to a more even position where there is at least some weight on the base of the toes as well as on the heels. Letting the arms come out, but not reaching for anything, just trying to keep soft in the upper body and in the neck, not have the spine be a victim of the stretch on the back of the legs, which of course we're living with. One more breath to go right into the back of the legs. What's going on there? Really take an interest in what's actually happening in the back of the legs. Oh, and then feel the opening around the top of the pelvic rim. Bend the knees. Fingertips are roughly level with the toes. And with both knees bent, you take a big step, or actually a little, and then a few hops. You know, doesn't really matter whether to me. And in fact, I was too far back, so I'm now wiggling my front foot forward a bit because I meandered too far towards the back of my mat. Now I am going to take for lunge with the back leg up, but if that's too much, and it probably is for quite a few people here, just put your back foot down, just put your back knee down rather. But if you're up to just doing this for a moment or two first, exhale, strengthen this back leg by flexing the foot. And of course, while you're flexing the foot, you're allowing the front groin to bend. The front foot's facing forward. How much can you soften the top of the shoulders? Soften the face. And then if you're able to, also drop the tail as you continue to work this back leg. Last breath. Using the exhalation for strength. And then dropping the back knee onto a cushion if it hurts on the floor. Something that some people do in this, by the way, just if you want to just try it, with your hands on, if I've got my knuckles down because it's more comfortable for me at the moment, and my front knee was too far over my foot, so I'm moving my front foot forward, just making a little adjustment, emptying the back of the neck. If you lift up, if it's comfortable and you fancy, you can lift up the back foot, and that gives you a slight stretch on the front of that back thigh. And if you're doing that, see if you can still have a space between between the shoulder blades, where the dorsal fin hole is, where the slot for the dorsal fin is. Okay. Flex. And then come onto all fours. I think it isn't, strictly speaking, part of the salute, but I do think it's worth, actually, no, before we do that, we'll just go straight into our plank. So again, if you've got wrist problems or it's just too much, you think it's right for you for any reason to do a forearm plank, that's still quite a lot of work. And your idea is that your shoulders are over your elbows. If you're on your hands, big hands, and again, shoulders over the heel of the hands this time. The heel of the heels, the feet heels, go away. And as you exhale, see if you can do a slow motion Kapalabhati, where you look for the relationship between the exhalation, the tummy button, the inside of the tummy button, the top of the pelvic floor, and the tail drops. And then drop the knees. And now we're going to have a rest. Let's take a frog. You can do a child pose, obviously, if you prefer, but I don't see. If the frog doesn't bother you, then you're just adding a teeny bit of hip opening to a child's pose and a teeny bit of foot opening, which is always, well, for me, it's always helpful. Now, if you come back to the dorsal fin, is there stuff going on there? I mean, it's as simple as that. Is there anything going on between the shoulder blades in that area of the spine between at the back of the ribs, upper back of the ribs? If you just think about softening that, and then where we were working on Friday, the solar plexus, that area at the top of the ribs at the front, that gets tight or uncomfortable. Spend a soothing exhalation on your, or two, on the abdomen and the solar plexus. And then before we move, let's just come into the stretch, which I've ignored, verbally anyway. Where is this stretch? What is the feeling of stretch? You know, for a start, when I say the stretch, where is that for you? I've got a couple of candidates going on here. So where is your stretch? And what does this stretch actually feel like? And is the sensation going on there infecting somewhere else? Can you empty the skin on the back of the body now? And then before we move, just a breathing focus. So the last few weeks we've been talking about this, a face space at the top of the nose. So through the face space, gently, beautiful, gently smelling. You're not greedy with the air. So be respectful almost of the air. You're not grabbing at it. You're relishing it, you're appreciating the air, and you're sending it into the floating ribs, the inhalation, not too much. As soon as it gets there, oh, yum, 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 puddle. Slosh around on the ground, become liquid. And in particular, become liquid in the area of the stretch. Okay. Now if we just drop down through the hand, so a lovely big hand, not huge, but you know, quite wide. The gap between the little finger and the thumb should certainly play 8 notes of a piano. And the middle finger is facing forward. And the knees are under the hips, and the head will probably drop, which is fine, as long as your throat isn't shut at all. And see if you can empty the buttocks and the thighs. Let's just do some hip circles, some Monday morning. We just start. In fact, I'm going to come into a bit of a spinal wriggle soon, but I'm just starting with hips. Thinking about the spine. So as we move the hips, we're pulling the bottom of the spine down, back, side, up, round, whatever you want to call it, words. And then if you don't have to keep it still, you can if you want to, try and find your shoulder blades, the plate-like bones at the top corners of the ribs, and slide them around. So start playing. Don't worry what it looks like, no one's looking. But hopefully we're all in a powerful feeling mode. Say powerful, I mean clear. Absolutely great clarity. Feel as one shoulder moves, one shoulder blade, then the other, maybe both at once. And then if you bring the tail and the shoulders into some kind of conversation with each other, I don't want to call it a dance, because it isn't any. There's no right or wrong or good or bad. It's all good, as long as we're not hurting ourselves. And then the head. If you start to move the neck, I mean, the head is simply moving the neck. It's the rudder for the neck. So we've got the hips moving, we've got the shoulder blades moving, and we've got the neck moving. And then if you bring in the breath, start letting the breath bring you into some kind of opening on the vertebrae of the back of the spine. So as you exhale, empty the exhalation, drop the heel of the hands into the floor and the underside of the fingers without pushing. And feel the pelvic floor get lifted almost up to the throat. And release completely. We're going to do one more of those, a really an exhalation that involves all of us, you know, every last little bit of us. I'm breathing through my mouth to be clear, you know, to inspire the exhalation, but of course we always only breathe through the mouth. Look for what's happening behind the tummy button and the relationship between the tummy button and the pelvic floor. Okay. Let's just have a kneel. I'm sorry, I'm sticking extra things into the salute here. I can't help myself. It just seems to me, you can do positions, you know, open up little bits of the body, stop them becoming fragile or gritty, simply by using them, but without, you know, making a big song and dance about every little thing that we do. Here, not only are we opening the feet, and of course you can be on cushions or just come up, it's just too much. Can you release the skin on the back of the body? So if the skin on the back of the body, which we did a lovely spinal wriggle with just now, if the skin on the back of the body could feel like it's now melting, it's not melting fast, it's beginning to melt. The skin on the back of the body is beginning to melt, the back of the neck and the back of the body, the skin inside, the inside of the skin on the back of the body, dropping. And if you're gripping your buttocks or your thighs or your groins, can you let it go? And if you let your groins go, can you let your shoulders go? You know, it interests me that even though shoulders do need to be kept moving, I'm coming up now, a lot of what we do with shoulders is keeping them out of other, a lot of the benefit I've had through yoga for my shoulders is keeping them out of other things. So for example, when I kneel, I don't like kneeling. So I naturally want to bring my shoulders up and somehow lift my weight somehow off. And even if I don't think that lifting my shoulders up is going to lift my weight off, it's become a natural instinct to do it. Anyway. Big wide hands, inhale, exhale, do a cat and let that become a cobra. So when I say a cat, I mean what we were just doing. As you breathe out, continue to breathe out, watch for the inside of behind the tummy button and the pelvic floor, behind the tummy button and the pelvic floor, as you let the weight drop onto your hands. And keep the elbows, the reason to keep the elbows slightly soft is so that you don't get this effect. I don't think it's really doing any damage, but I'll just do it forwards to show you what I mean. If your elbows are locked, when you come forwards into a cobra, you can't get the hands out of the way, so the top of the shoulders come up and you kind of shorten the side of the neck. And what you also do is you block the chest from opening. Whereas if you have the elbows slightly bent, that's just soft, they're not bent, they're soft, is really what I mean. Exhale, pelvic floor, 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 tummy button, pelvic floor. And then with the soft shoulders, you can bring the top of the arm slightly back. But what it feels like is a slight smile above the breasts, really, from one shoulder across to the other. One shoulder across the other. That's the bit that opens. So it's a slight feeling of the arms coming behind you at the end of but don't hold the end of the exhalation. That's it, keep going down. Look. That's it. Oh, beautiful. That's fantastic. Excellent, Lena. Exemplary, Izzy. That's great. Yes, you've got it, Tony. Perfect. I think that the hands slightly further forward is going to give a couple of you a bit more room. That looks fantastic on the tummy, Tanya. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That's it. A bit wider with the hands, Sue. That's lovely on the chest, lovely on the spine, but you're a bit narrow, so you didn't give your chest quite enough room to open. Think of this as a chest opening exercise. Fantastic, gorgeous. Okay, dog. So now, I like this insight, really, that, well, I suppose the obvious problem in dog is shoulder tension. So how do we get out of the shoulder tension? If we drop down through the hands rather than push down through the hands. You drop down through the hands, big hands, and then you come off the floor and you're still dropping down through the hands. And then you come a bit further away with your tail and you're still dropping, not pushing, dropping down with the hands. And as someone pulls the tail back, you're still dropping down with the hands, the heels of the hands. You're just dropping your weight. They're not pushing, you're dropping, so that the upper arm muscles are not engaged. And just keep that feeling of dropping rather than pushing as your spine lengthens. Your invisible helpers pulling your tail away from your middle fingers. So the gap between the bottom of your spine and your top of the spine just grows and grows and grows and grows until you can, or you can play with the feet going towards the ground. You can have your feet on a wall for the next one. If your heels don't go down, you might be more comfortable with your feet on a wall. Now, can you rest in this position, dropping down through the hands, resting for the beginning of the exhalation, but the second half of the exhalation, what's going on behind the tummy button and with the pelvic floor. Let the inhalation come into the floating ribs. Come down when you've had enough. Feel free to move around. Exhale behind the belly button and the pelvic floor. Okay, so now I'm not really into flowing, so I'm going to come down onto my knees, and in fact I'm now going to take, because it's Monday, I'm feeling like a masochist today, the underside of the toes. Just doing that. I'm not even sure if this is true, but I was told once by somebody that this is how they sit for the tea ceremony. If anyone knows that, I'm interested to know. It seems impossible that you would want to sit for hours kneeling with your toes bent under. If it's too much, have your toes not bent under, or sit on a bolster. And let's just open our arms, because we don't do that very much in the salute. So I'm just crossing the arms like I'm hugging myself and then bringing them back and around, so that well, in theory, I mean, I've got quite long arms, so I can just about do this with my palms vertical, touching each other, front of my face, dropping the shoulders, releasing the forehead and the lips. And the shoulders go down. Oh, that's quite enough of that. Okay. Release. Give them a shake. It's time to do side 2 of the lunge. So just kneeling, put one foot forward quite a long way. As the front knee goes forward, let the tail go down and then lift the back leg and wiggle it away if it isn't quite far enough. So you need to feel that the heel of the back foot is going away from you, because that will help you open the back of the knee of that back leg without you gripping the kneecap, exactly as we've done before. And of course, trying to keep that tail low and emptiness in the back of the body. And if someone were taking a portrait. They're taking the photo, but it's to paint a portrait of your face right now. A little bit of Mona Lisa is allowed to just poke out. One last exhalation, nearly there. Send that heel away, soften the back of the body, empty the solar plexus. You don't have to have a tight tummy to do this. Drop the back knee and enjoy the ground. No more supporting ourselves. Let the ground do the work. Let the ground have all of your back leg. Empty in the front foot. Quiet between the shoulder blades. And exhale. And flex, come onto the back knee and flex the front foot. Okay, I'm going to do one last dog to walk up into a forward bend. And if that doesn't feel like you today, then just come and do a forward bend. I'm going to come up into a dog using Kapalabhati. Which means, in practice for me, not a huge gap between my hands and my feet. For the Kapalabhati to really get pumped up from underneath, from this relationship between inside the tummy button and the pelvic floor. I'm going to make it practical. I'm going to make it possible. So just a couple of breaths in this position, just wherever you want to. You see, I now find the need to lengthen one side of the body from one armpit to heel to the other armpit to heel, just by sliding the hips, not by lifting a leg. You can do this by lifting a leg, but it's different if you just let your weight go onto one foot, and then it's the other side stretch, and then the other side. Okay. So have a little play, see what you find, and then into a forward bend. So how have your arms released? You might think that you have, but maybe they haven't. Or they could a bit more. What about the cheeks and the jaws? Have they released? What about the forehead? How wide is the forehead? What about this area each side of the sacrum? How empty and open can you make this lumbar spine? If it's hurting, if it's too much, bend your knees and have softness in the top of the body. Move the shoulder blades around, and then if you've still got straight legs, see if you can find your table. So it's tea time, and it's fine china, and the tea's been poured, and we've got to provide the table. So bring the head and the arms, think about the legs feeding upwards, think about the head feeding inwards, think about the shoulders. So you can make, I've got no idea really what this looks like. I'm trying to create a tray, a table out of my back that is pretty parallel to the ground and pretty not lumpy. Okay. Lovely. Oh, fantastic. Good. Bend the knees, come up. It's quite hard. It is quite hard doing that. Well done. That's pretty excellent. Serving receptacles there. So if we now come and stand on the back leg, which I'm going to use my left, my back leg. And it's towards the back of the mat, and it's at 45 degrees in the middle of the back of the mat. So can you release the other leg, the other buttock, the other leg? can you release the shoulders? Can you then, while you're also releasing the shoulders and the other leg, you don't have to move them around, can you focus on the difference in feeling between the standing leg? You're not gripped, you're not growing stronger, trying to do this in a resting way, just being. Isness, back of the neck. And then take a step. And the front foot is not huge, but the instep, the heel would hit the instep of the back foot. So I'm just going to do this ease. I'm thinking of it as an easy triangle. And the reason is that the easy bit is that I'm not really, I used to yank this back hip round as far as I could so that the hips were facing the front, which is the instruction. And I've stopped doing that because partly my own back says, oh, are you sure about that? But also partly because of knee problems. And I just don't think it's worth risking the knee. So what I do now is similar. I don't not do that. I just don't go so far. I slightly come around with the back foot. And I'm thinking back heel, but I haven't turned the hip all the way around. Let the hands float up, back heel, back leg. Back leg, back leg. Come forward over the front foot. Still got all my attention breathing down through the spine, down to the back leg, back heel, back heel. Release the front arm. And now put your attention on this back hip. Don't let it move. Invisible G clamps, a magical G clamp holding it in 3D spaces. You let the top arm, as long as your shoulder's not problematic, rotate over the top of that shoulder. And then release the bottom shoulder. That looks fantastic. That's great. And this is, it's quite tricky, but we're really working on this area at the back of our upper ribs here. Now we're going to work on the leg. So if you want to keep playing, you go down the leg towards, or maybe for some of you reaching the ground, and you touch. And so now this is a good old side stretch. Ah, fantastic. And then put that hand behind your back, bend the knee and come up. Now I'm just going to put both feet forward and just a wide leg, not very wide, but quite wide leg forward bend. And again, this width on the back, the lower back. And empty in the arms, and nothing in the head, and nothing in the face, and jelly in the upper body. Oh, enjoy watching the exhalation and the different parts of it. So the first part of the exhalation, chill. It's that kind of phew. The first half of the exhalation is phew. That's another good 4-letter word. And then the second half of the exhalation is melt and live with. Okay, bend the knees. You might want to wiggle your feet together. Exhale. Now look, really focus. As you come up, inside the belly button, pelvic floor. Inside the belly, with the exhalation, inside the belly button, pelvic floor. And come up from in there. Right foot at the back of the mat, big right foot. You need a big base to balance. You're doing more harm than good if you tighten the face and the throat and the shoulders. So see if you can keep all that feeling of space, particularly in the throat actually. And now just differentiate, see how much you can release the other buttock, the other leg, the shoulders. Even while the standing leg is having to support the weight. Quite interesting. You can have that standing leg support the weight without it being gripped. Front foot forward. Just check your feet. Have the weight on the outside edge of the feet. This idea of rotating the knees towards their own little toes. For years I used to call it the mangle. And by the mangle I mean the thighs of the mangle, opening outwards. Sorry, it's not a wonderful image. Hands come up. Now the back leg has got to be strong because it's going to take the weight. Back heel, go forward. Don't let this hip move, that's fantastic. Let this arm float up. You can look to see whether it's straight. Come back to the knees, keep rotating the knees. Be calm, be calm. Okay, now gradually, not going very far. Just see what happens. You'll hit a barrier. Now for quite a few people that'll be just under the knee. What's happened to the back of the neck? If you find that your hand does go without, pain, let it go further. Just let it go where it goes. And keep rotating the knees out. That was fantastic. Really does. Excellent. Smashing. Good. Well done. Hand behind the back, the upper arm behind the back. Both feet forward. Bend the knees. And come up. I do want to do a half moon, but I just think that for quite a few of you are going to be happier doing it with a couple of blocks and or the wall, or indeed a shelf. But I'm going to do it as a balance today. It's slightly different when you do it as a balance. I'll just explain. When you do it against a wall, you can concentrate on this top hip opening, and then the top shoulder opening. So when you're against a wall, it's much more about the rotation. But that's if you're throwing in a balance, and that becomes tougher. And I'm giving myself the benefit of a couple of blocks. And there is a much harder, there's many of you will know this warrior balance where you come onto the front leg and you lift up the arms and you lift up the leg, and that is a much harder balance than this. This, where you've got a hand on something, you've got a foot and a hand, it's hardly a balance at all. So instead of 2 feet, you're replacing a foot with a hand. Think of it that way. Open the top shoulder, and yes, let the top arm follow. That's great. That's brilliant, Renee. Yeah, spot on, Tanya. Charlotte, that's fantastic. Well done. I think you've gone a little bit too far, Leslie, with your back leg. Were you a dancer or something? It's cheating. If you were. Other foot, other back foot. So why isn't that working? The thing that your hand is on, make sure it's just the right height for you, really. It doesn't matter what it is, it can be a chair. And you can't tell, I can't tell how high my leg is, really, by just feeling it's very hard. But try and make that back leg, that's beautifully straight. Absolutely fantastic. That's perfect, Rosie. Very good. Spot on, Tanya. Excellent. Now, Katie D, stronger with your standing leg. Got it. Well done. That was excellent. Well done. Come out. Spot on. Okay. It's time to go and do the front of thigh stretch. Holding on. Just this. It's kind of, this is not a balance. We don't need to worry about what's happening with the standing leg. If it wants to be straight, it's straight. If it wants to be soft, it's soft. All we're really doing is trying to drop the femur out of the hip bone. Let it out, let it drop, let it be. It's really not about the bone of the leg at all. It's about the space in the joint, potential space in the joint at the top of the leg. Well done. If you're balancing, and I can see a few of you are, put both hands on your foot. Slightly soften the standing leg, and as you exhale, come back to behind the tummy button, the pelvic floor, opening the chest from the pelvic floor, and you'll find that if you have managed to release that hip, that actually gives the hip more space, not less. And do the other side. Excellent. Hold on at least to start with, because if you come into this as a balance, well, I mean, you know, you can set up a lot of tension that you then have to release. So it's up to you. I mean, I do this quite frequently by myself, and I don't tend to hold. But some days the balance isn't as good as other days. Now concentrate on releasing the hip out of the socket. It feels like the knee is going to drop down to the ground. Don't worry about anything else. The skin on the rest of the body may have a kind of a melty feeling. And then when you're ready, when you feel that you've become calm, and before you become too tired, as you exhale, concentrate on this behind, what's happening behind the belly button, and how is that joined up to the pelvic floor. And from the pelvic floor, it's another one where we bring the shoulders back slightly to increase this opening. Very much like a standing cobra. You can think of this as a one-legged standing cobra. Fab. Excellent, Puri. Yeah, good. Come out. And we get to lie down. Hurrah. Cushion under the head. Blanket if you're going to want one. I'm just no, I won't actually. If you have a weight bag, it's lovely to use a weight bag in a floor twist. There's a few uses of weight bags. It's one of those things I can't do it unless everyone's got one. Maybe when we have an actual workshop. So anyway, lying on the ground, massaging the back on the ground by rolling from side to side. The head stays in the middle. The neck is empty. The shoulders are on holiday. Quite frankly, they're going to have the rest of the morning off. And you roll from side to side, releasing the skin, they get into the ground. And when you get to the side that you want to start on with both legs, tether the top hand, and I was going to do a different balance twist this morning, but maybe later in the week we'll do that. Oh, drop the hips. You know, it's Sue sent me this lovely clip about Tim Peake. He's been 6 months in space, and he was asked what gravity felt like when he came back, and he said very, very heavy. And of course we are unconscious of it, but he was conscious of the power, the weight of hoiking ourselves around under the pure weight of gravity, the pure pressure of gravity. And now, no more hoiking. Just absolutely throwing ourselves into the arms of gravity. You have me. You have every last gram. And just double check that you've thrown in the head and the shoulders and the arms. There's no little pockets of energy where you're trying to somehow protect or yourself or just be responsible for your own weight. Just give it up. Capitulate to the inevitability of dropping to the ground. Go with, embrace. Oh, yum, 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 yum. And there's the added incentive of knowing that you're doing yourself a little bit of good as you have this lovely, full-on, absolute rest. The spine is getting some benefit. And before you move, just check there's nowhere that is busy. There's nowhere that would benefit from a little bit of extra release or deeper quietness. The shoulder blades, the groins, the lips, the eyeballs. And when you're ready, when you want to, roll to the other side. And get yourself, sorted. I just lifted up my lower shoulder blade and put it down again. For example, you might be just fine. Kaplonk. Is that a game? Kaplunk. I think it's a game. Well, go kaplunk. Kaplop. Discombobulate. Abandon responsibility for the head. I mean, it's easy to think that you have when you haven't. It's easy to think, well, I'm not doing anything with my head. And then you look and you think, well, there's some tension maybe in the neck. And maybe the jaw, I could release that a bit more. And sometimes just tuning into the weight of the hips and allowing that to be properly heavy has a knock-on effect of a slight, more subtle softening in the upper body, behind, around the shoulder blades perhaps, below the bottom of the neck. And just, because we're going to finish with some breathing, so this is the beginning of the breathing, we're just doing it in this position. Put your hand on the floating ribs that you can feel, the top ones. So the elbow's on the ground and the palm of the hand just rests lightly on the back. And using your palm of your hand as a kind of a range finder, a beacon of light on a foggy day for you to send the breath gently into. Just send the inhalation, not too much, be parsimonious, send the inhalation gently into the hand. Don't be worried about accuracy too much, just into that. And then almost as soon as it gets there, oh, and as you breathe out, there's a noticeable physical capitulation. The muscles go, oh. The whole body goes, oh. There's a feeling of, oh, okay then. And the next breath comes in through the face space, in following the dim direction given by the palm of the hand. Gently, not greedy with the inhalation. And then the soothing exhalation, and the next breath will be the last one. So be completely present for it if you can. If you've wandered up to now, that's fine. Let that all go. Come back to this inhalation through the bridge of the nose into the palm of the hand. Gently, gently, accurately. not too much, not gritting the teeth. And as soon as you get there, oh, yum, 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 melty, melty, spready, spready. Kaplunkness. And come and find your resting position when you've done. Which probably means being warm. Maybe a cushion under the head, maybe an eye bag, maybe the legs up on a bolster or chair or wall. Your favourite resting position. You may want to start a meditation now. If you've got 10-15 minutes, what better way to spend it? Which would be sitting rather than lying. Because when we lie, letting our attention go is part of it. And when we sit, it's all about keeping our attention awake. But for now, when we start lying, and before our attention drifts, we use it. What's going on the base of the skull? In the space between the head and the body. Could you create a feeling of space, of emptiness, of nothing between the head lying safely and heavily on the ground or in its pillow and the shoulders and upper arms and shoulder blades lying completely safely held by the ground, and in between these two weights is nothing. Which means the jaws are abandoned, the forehead is spacious. The tongue is allowed to soften. And the tongue's powerful. And another small hint or tip is if you have any trouble with the inhalation, and I am someone with a narrow nose, so I do have not trouble, but I wouldn't mind if the inhalation was even a freer. I rest the tongue on the top of the mouth, and that allows the inhalation to come in slightly more freely. So just let the tongue rest on the top of the mouth. Come back to the solar plexus, the area at the front of the top of the ribs where all that angst lives and all the nerves meet up, and the heart is not too far away, and the adrenal glands and all that. Exhale, empty, soften, soothe. Give yourself a gap, some space at the front of the ribs. Just double check that you've abandoned the arm muscles, particularly the upper arms, the deep groins, the top of the inside of the thighs, both buttocks. It'd be nice if there was nothing going on in the feet. Rubbery lips. And just the solar plexus, just come back there and look at the breath come and go from this area at the upper abdomen until you notice your attention has drifted, at which point enjoy resting. So just as the breath comes in, protect your tummy from tightness. Don't let the in-breath make your tummy tight, not even slightly. And all we're talking about is muscles. Just be vigilant for any muscular reaction in the tummy, and as you breathe out, use the exhalation in the tummy to soothe, 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 release. And then if you're on the ground, drop. Release, 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 drop. With the exhalation, release, release, release. Drop. And do stay there for a few minutes after this quite energetic class.